Lori again, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I would like to share another one of Amber May's absolutely wonderful canning recipes with you. Amber May is the founder of the Snug group on Facebook. That's SNUG, Canning to Preserve Our Future. We invite you to come and join us there, and you will have access to all of Amber May's wonderful recipes and the other fabulous recipes that members share also. But anyway, come and join us there. I do have permission from Amber herself to share this recipe with you today. I have been on a mission to clean out and unplug all of our freezers. We are just trying to minimize, we are trying to reduce our electrical bill in our household, and this is one of the ways that I am doing it by just eliminating freezers. And the other day I ran across a bunch of shrimp that I had purchased just a couple of months back, and it just came to mind this wonderful shrimp bisque recipe that Amber has shared with us. And so I want to share this wonderful shrimp bisque soup recipe with you today. Now, Amber does use fresh shrimp, and if you do have access to fresh shrimp, you're going to need 5 pounds of shrimp, whether it's fresh or whether it's pre-cooked shrimp. But with your fresh shrimp, you just go ahead and prepare your shrimp, and you take the peels and the skins and you put them into a pot, and then as you're prepping all of the vegetables, which I will share with you, as you're prepping your vegetables, go ahead and put all of the peels to your vegetables in with that shrimp discard, the heads and the skins of the shrimp. So go ahead and put your onion peel and the peelings of your carrot and the peelings from your garlic, and if you have any ever leftover leek type stuff, you go ahead and put that in a saucepan and barely cover that with water, and then go ahead and simmer that for a couple of hours, and that will make a wonderful shrimp broth for you to use in this recipe. Now, I do not have fresh shrimp. I had the pre-cooked shrimp. They were already peeled. They did have a little bit of the tail left on them, but mine are actually pre-cooked frozen shrimp. And I just went ahead and I defrosted them, and then I just pinched off that tail from the end of it. But obviously, just pinching off those tails, I don't have enough leftover skins or whatever from peeling the shrimp to actually be able to make a broth. And so I want to share a wonderful thing with you. Knorr has a shrimp bouillon in these wonderful cubes, and each cube makes 2 cups of broth. So you just mix it with 2 cups of boiling water, and you have your required 2 cups of shrimp broth, which is called for in the recipe. So that's 2 of my little cheats. Number 1 cheat is I am not using raw shrimp, I'm using pre-cooked shrimp. And my second cheat is I obviously cannot make my own shrimp broth, and so I'm cheating by using a shrimp broth cube. Okay, so those are my 2 little tips for the day. All right, so you go ahead, and if you do have that raw shrimp, go ahead and make that shrimp broth the way that I directed, with all of your vegetable scraps or whatever from preparing your vegetables for this soup, and get them on to simmer for a couple of hours. Now, the rest of the recipe, and I will remind you again, this needs 5 pounds of shrimp, okay? So the rest of the recipe I will have Roger put up over here for you. You can either jot it down on a piece of paper, or you can pause the video and screenshot that and save it into your photo gallery. But I'll have him put the recipe up over here. This is Amber May's shrimp bisque. 5 pounds of shrimp, 1 large sweet onion chopped, 2 carrots shredded, 4 garlic cloves minced, 1 leek diced, 1 pint of tomatoes, 1 cup of white wine, 2 cups of shrimp broth, 1 bay leaf, 1 tablespoon of whole peppercorns, and a little bit of butter. Now, in a saucepan, what you're going to do is you're just going to take a little bit of butter, and you're just going to start kind of sauteing all of your vegetables. And you can see, with my carrots, I really didn't even shred them very finely. I took my potato peeler and I just kind of put them into little peeled strips is what I did. And the rest of my vegetables are pretty well diced. And I've got a little butter in this pan also. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to start kind of cooking and sauteing all of this for a little while. And once I get that kind of softened and reduced a little bit, then I'll come back and we'll continue. All right, so I have sauteed my vegetables, all of my vegetables, for approximately 10 minutes. And you can see that they are pretty limp. I mean, they're still beautiful and colorful, but they are softened up and they are limp. This is the point in time, if you have raw shrimp, this is the point in time that you want to go ahead and add your raw shrimp and just cook them just until they color, okay? So, raw shrimp in and just cook them for a few more minutes until they color. Now, since I am already working with pre-cooked shrimp, I'm not going to give them any cooking time at all. I see that some more defrosting has happened. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to run over to the sink and just drain this extra liquid out, and I will be right back. All right, guys, so I drained my extra liquid out. So, those of you with raw shrimp, you're cooking your shrimp until they color. Those of us with pre-cooked shrimp, we're just going to add them and add all of our liquid and everything at the same time. You know, the raw shrimp, they need a couple of minutes to cook. But since our shrimp is already, or my shrimp is already cooked, I'm just going to proceed with making the soup at this point in time. So we have all of our shrimp in there. We have our 2 cups of shrimp broth. Just going to go ahead and get that in there. We're going to add 1 cup of white wine. Now you can do dry or sweet. I chose a sweet wine today, just 1 cup. I think that this great big bottle cost me around $7. It's not the highest quality, obviously. It's just oak leaf and it's a Moscato. Some people would probably prefer more of a dry wine in their soup, but this is just what I grabbed and this is what I'm using. So 1 cup of white wine. And, you know, I was actually really impressed. Even though this is only a $7 bottle of wine, this thing actually had a cork in it. It wasn't just a screw-off cap. It actually had a wine cork in the bottle. So I was, you know, for a cheap wine, I was pretty doggone impressed with that. But anyway, so go ahead and add your 1 cup of wine, your 2 cups of broth, throw in a bay leaf, and if you're using peppercorns, go ahead and add your peppercorns. I just decided I'm going to use just ground black pepper today, and I'm just going to put in 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And then we are going to add 1 pint of tomatoes. Okay, we're just going to give that a nice stir. We're going to bring this to a boil, and then we are going to simmer it for 10 minutes. Now, we really don't want to overcook this because we all know if we cook shrimp too much, it kind of gets rubbery. So we're just going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to lower it to a simmer, and we're going to simmer for 10 minutes. So after that happens, I'll be back to show you the next step. Okay, so I brought the soup up to a boil, and then I lowered the heat, and I simmered it for 10 minutes. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just turn off the heat. One thing that I will tell you to do at this point in time is kind of fish through your soup and try to find that bay leaf and get that bay leaf out of there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to look for the bay leaf and remove that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this soup cool for probably 15 minutes because what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and put the soup into our blender and completely emulsify everything, okay? But I don't want to put the extremely hot contents into my blender. I want to let it cool just a little bit, just for the safety of my machine. So I'm going to let it cool, then I'm going to get it totally emulsified in the blender, and then I will come back. All right, so I allowed my soup to cool enough so that I felt it was safe enough for my blender, and I just really emulsified this. Now, in Amber's directions, she suggests taking a wire mesh strainer and straining your soup through that. I own a Ninja blender, and I'm telling you guys, there's no chunks left in here at all. All right, it is completely emulsified, and so I'm going to choose not to strain my soup. Now, you can see that this is still a pretty thick mixture. Hopefully you're putting it down. Yeah, you can see it. You can see that this is a really, really thick mixture, all right? And I feel like this really needs to be thinned a little bit more before I can it. And so I have mixed up a couple more, actually I've mixed up 4 cups of the shrimp broth, you know, from my Knorr cubes. And I'm just going to add a little bit of extra shrimp broth just because I feel like it just needs to be a little bit thinner. Now, you know, canning is all about density. And if you have a really thick and dense product, it can't boil and move around in the jar very well. And so I'm just going to go ahead and just slowly add my broth until I feel like I'm at a point where I'm a little bit more comfortable with how fluid it is. And we are quickly getting there. Now, if you wanted to do a combination of your shrimp broth and maybe just a little bit more wine, you could definitely do that. That is not an issue at all. But as you're thinning it, just add little amounts at a time just to see exactly where you're at. And now it's not as gloppy. Ooh, I just splattered myself right underneath the eye, guys. Wow. What are the chances of that happening? But anyway, just make sure that it's fluid enough that you're going to have really good heat transfer all the way throughout your jar. And I feel like that really looks like a really good consistency. All right, I'm happy with that. So at this point in time, I am going to actually wipe my eye just a little bit more and make sure that I don't have any of that tomato and wine by my eye to make it stink. I have gotten my pint jars prepared. Now this is another thing too, is that seafood of any kind, it is suggested only to can seafood products in either half pint or 1 pint jars. Okay, that's just a safety thing for seafood. So you don't want to can this in anything larger than a pint. I am canning pints today, and this is going to be a pressure canning period of 45 minutes for half pints, or a hot water bath of 3 hours. All right, and please remember, actually I'm going to turn this off. I still have my heat on, so it's bubbling away. Please remember with this particular soup recipe, you have added tomato product, which is acid. You've also added wine, which is acid. So this is really, really safe, okay, to can. And either way, pressure canning or hot water bathing, absolutely no problems at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and I am going to ladle my hot soup into my jars, and I'm going to get them into a hot prepared canner. And I am going to be pressure canning today. I'm going to do the 45-minute pressure canning period. And I have heated my canner since we're working with hot soup. After we get it in our jars, everything's going to be good and hot, and you need to match that that canner water to the temperature of the food in the jar that you're putting it in there. So we're just going to go ahead and ladle this in to 1-inch headspace. I got to grab my ladle. 1-inch headspace, which is, as always, at the very bottom of that screw-on, the screw-on threads on your jar. Just right at the bottom of that is your 1-inch headspace. And like all other canning things that you do, after you fill that jar, you just take a clean laundered wet washcloth and wipe that rim and place your flat and your ring. Now again today I am using my Superb canning lids, and so I'm not going to screw them on quite as tight as, you know, some of the other brands that I use. The Superb have a hard time venting, so I like to have a gentler touch with them, so I don't screw them on completely tight. And into the hot canner they go, and I will just continue filling my jars with this wonderful shrimp bisque soup. jars and getting them in the canner, and then I'll be back. Okay, so all of my jars are filled and in the canner. I did get 8 pints of soup off of that recipe. Now that will vary just a little bit depending on the size of your shrimp themselves. Well, I mean, you're going to use 5 pounds, but like me today, I used bags of frozen shrimp, and actually the bags were only 12 ounces. They weren't technically 16 ounces. So I used 5 of those bags. So I really technically didn't have 5 pounds of shrimp. But the volume of your finished soup is going to depend on the amount of shrimp that you have in there, the size of the onion that you use, the size of the leek that you use, and of course how much additional fluid that you add also. So my recipe today, sorry, the dog. Anyway, my recipe today netted 8 pints of soup. And I am going to just, over medium heat, I'm going to bring this up to a vent. I will vent for 10 minutes, then I will place my weight. Sadie! Hey! Hey! Sadie, come on. I will place my weight, and then I will bring it up to pressure, and I will pressure can either half pints or pints for 45 minutes. So when that is done and my canner is cooled, I will come back and show you the amazing results. Okay, so I got through my pressure canning session of 45 minutes, and if you choose to water bath for 3 hours, absolutely fine. Let my canner cool down enough so that I feel like it's safe to remove the lid. I let my pressure valve lid lock button drop down. My emergency button had dropped down. Then I just opened my canner and cracked it off to the side, just a titch, and allowed it to cool longer. So now I feel like it is safe to go ahead and remove the lid and remove our wonderful jars of shrimp bisque soup. And you will see that there is just a little bit of separation, but as they cool and seal, that is easily mixed up. Here, I'll aim my camera down just a little bit more. There we go. Oh my gosh, so wonderful. You can still hear them venting. I should have allowed just a little bit more cool down period for my canner. But it's getting late at night. I'm getting impatient and tired. Got about 100 pokers in the fire. And yeah, sometimes that's just how it is. You should never, honestly, you should never rush canning. But, you know, guys, sometimes life just, you do the best you can. And sometimes we do get in a rush. That can cause problems, of course, and I will just stress to you, never rush pressure canning, all right? But with my superb lids, as you know, I put my jars into the canner a little bit looser, and then I just snug them up slightly after they come out of the canner. So I'm just going to go around and just snug up those lids if they need to be snugged. Some of them are still kind of venting, and I can tell there's just not a whole lot of give in those rings. But the ones that have already cooled enough, you can see that I was able to turn the rings just a little bit. I don't hold jar and force it down. It's just a very gentle motion, just snugging it up. I'm going to give this about 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to snug them up again, because like I said, I should have allowed a little bit more cool off time before I removed them. So they're still pushing out that air. It's still bubbling and extremely hot. It's venting out of the jar. And so I'm gonna allow a little bit more cool down time. Then I'm gonna snug them up again. Then just don't touch them anymore. Allow them to cool and seal overnight. And one of those superb lids. Bang. Did you hear that? They're amazing lids. But anyway, I don't think that I even really need to show you the results of this because it is just a soup. There's no, I guess, solid pieces of food in this where I want to show you what the texture or how it held together or whatever, whatever it is. It's just all emulsified from the blender. Just beautiful, beautiful results. Wonderful, tasty, amazing shrimp bisque soup. So I'm just going to let those cool down. And then in the morning, after they have cooled and sealed, I'm going to remove the rings, check my seals, wash the jars, and then, of course, label them and put them into storage. So honestly, it's as simple as it comes. This is an amazing soup. It's a kind of a really special thing that once in a while you can serve your family. It's out of the ordinary, but it's just so wonderful to have on hand. So, thank you for joining me again today. Thank you to Amber May for this amazing recipe. God bless you all, and happy canning, everybody.